Sweet Wong. I'm a faculty member in the English department, chair of the Department of Art Practice, and one of many co-organizers of this event. I'd like to thank the Students for Justice in Palestine, especially Sarah Haj Hassan, for their publicity and work, as well as other co-sponsors of this talk, the English department and the Center for Race and Gender. In addition, I thank Hassan Foda for serving as the US-based contact person for our guest speaker. And so thanks to all of you here and elsewhere who helped to make tonight possible. And now I'm pleased to introduce today's speaker, Ilan Pappé. Most of you are familiar with Professor Pappé and his work. Despite vocal detractors, he has been described as, quote, Israel's bravest, most principled, most incisive historian, unquote. Another admirer claims that, quote, along with Edward Said, the late Edward Said, Ilan Pappé is the most eloquent writer of Palestinian history. He earned an undergraduate degree from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem in 1978, followed by a Doctor of Philosophy in History from the University of Oxford in 1984. Over the years, Pappé has served in many prestigious academic roles. He was a senior lecturer in the Department of Middle Eastern History of the Department of Political Science at the University of Haifa from 1984 to 2006. The academic director of the Research Institute for Peace at Givat Haviva, an education, research, and documentation center devoted to fostering educational initiatives, research, and community work in the fields of peace, democracy, coexistence, tolerance, and social solidarity. And also, Givat Haviva sponsors the Jewish Arab Center for Peace. And he did that, served in that role as academic director from 1993 to 2000. Also, he served as chair of the Emil Tuma Institute for Palestinian Studies in Haifa from 2000 to 2006. Because Pappé was critical of official Israeli policies and endorsed the boycott of Israeli universities, the president of the university called for his resignation, and Pappé left the University of Haifa in 2007. Currently, he's a professor of history with the College of Social Sciences and International Studies at the University of Exeter in the United Kingdom. Also director of the university's European Center for Palestine Studies and co-director of the Exeter Center for Ethno-Political Studies. Pappé is often referred to as one of Israel's new historians, that is, a scholar who examines British and Israeli government documents that only became available in the 1980s in order to revise the history of Israel. In Pappé's case, to critique the Zionist history of Israel, the myths upon which Israel was envisioned, and Israel's systematic mistreatment of Palestinians. As part of what he calls a brief, quote-unquote, post-Zionist moment, Pappé tried to challenge Israeli self-aggrandizing and distorted myths from within. But as he explains in the early pages of his new book, he, quote, eventually left the country in despair, unable to alter the status quo, unquote. His list of publications is impressive, and I will simply note a few of his books: The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine, The Modern History of Palestine, One Land, Two Peoples, The Israeli-Palestine Question, The Husyanis, The Rise and Fall of the Palestinian Aristocracy, The Modern Middle East, Out of the Frame, and with Noam Chomsky, Gaza in Crisis, The Forgotten Palestinians, A History of the Palestinian Minority in Israel, The Bureaucracy of Evil, Peoples Apart, and in his most recent book, The Idea of Israel, A History of Power and Acknowledgement, he writes that he exposes the truth about how Palestinians have been treated and the gruesome structure that links the production of knowledge to the exercise of power. The Idea of Israel is a powerful and urgent intervention in the war of ideas concerning the past and the future of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. So please join me in welcoming Ilan Pappé.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction. you all for attending. I intend to present to you the new book that I've written with the hope of kicking off a discussion, probably wider implications than the topic I had in mind. I wrote this book in order to answer a question that bothered me for many years, or in order to settle a paradox that I thought was accompanying anyone who's interested in Israel and Palestine in the last 20 or 25 years. And the paradox or the question is, why does, it actually is the two paradoxes, two questions. One is, how can one explain the gap between how most Israeli Jews perceive themselves and the way more and more conscious people around the world see Israel? There was a time when the gap was not very wide. Whatever Israelis thought about themselves, Israeli Jews thought about themselves, was more or less what most people in the world thought about their state or their ideological movement. But in the last 10 or 15 years, a process began, which is accelerated by the day, where there is a wider gap between how Israeli Jews perceive themselves, their history, their narrative, and how people around the world, including the Western world, perceive them. The second question I wanted to answer is why this gap, which became a very significant gap in our time, has very little impact on the reality on the ground. How can it be that a state that in so many circles around the world is considered to be a pariah state, that is talked about more and more in the same mode as people who talk about apartheid South Africa or Chile in the days of Pinochet? How come that this has no impact whatsoever on the reality of the world? If anything, the reality becomes worse as the image of Israel deteriorates internationally. I used to give very simplistic answers to this question myself, and I'm sure many others gave the same answers. One typical answer to this question is the Holocaust. We know the Western world has an issue with the Holocaust, and therefore it provides Israel with unlimited immunity to do whatever it wants. Another answer relates to this country. Well, what would you want to happen if you have such an unconditional American support for Israel? With such a support, they don't have to bother about what anyone else says outside Capitol Hill about what they're doing. But I think this kind of answers underestimate the power of Israel to retain a certain image, a certain status in the world for so long, especially through periods when the access to information, when the transparent actions of Israel on the ground could not be hidden anymore under any discourse of democracy, enlightenment, and progress. So it can't be really, you can't sort of pin it all on American support, you can't sort of pin it all on European guilt about the Holocaust. I'm not underrating these factors. I think they do play a role, but I think there's something far more important. And if you get, as I try in this book, if you get into a better answer, better position at least, to answer this question, you understand not only the special status that Israel enjoys in the West, but the very complicated relationship that the West has with other countries in the Middle East, with Muslim countries, with the rest of the world. Because the way America is assessed, for instance, goes through its special relationship with Israel. even in places which have nothing to do with Israel and have nothing to do with Palestine. The American double talk about Israel is one of the main reasons why people are even willing to commit suicide in order to show the Americans their, as President Bush asked the question, why do they hate us? So I think there is a connection between them. So in this book, I gave a lot of credit. I started by giving a lot of credit to the Zionist movement and later to the State of Israel in producing this amazing success. I decided this is a project that people invested a lot of effort in. It didn't happen just like this because someone else did something else. They invested a lot of effort in producing a certain narrative, a certain image, or a certain campaign of branding what they were doing in a way that in many ways fabricated the reality, but far more important, enabled them to remain in the eyes of many people for a very long time, both a beacon of democracy and enlightenment on the one hand, and yet involved in policies and strategies and practices that if anyone else would have committed them, would have immediately been branded as racist, unacceptable, and immoral. This is a great success. I think it was President Lincoln who said you cannot cheat all the people, all the time, and so on. Well, I think he didn't hear about brand Israel campaign. He would have changed his phrasing on this one. So I decided to look from the very beginning, from 1948. I didn't go deeper. I decided to start in 1948 and to see whether Israel invested an effort to brand itself, inside and outside, and how did it brand it? What were the main methods of branding the narrative? I don't have to repeat the narrative that they wanted to brand. I think most of you are familiar with it, although I will mention it. I'm much more interested in the way they, what they produced, we know. It's the image of the only democracy in the Middle East that can be a racist state at the same time, can expand over 5 countries, occupy another people for 45 years. I don't have to repeat the list of the policies. Far more important is to examine deeply the image, not the policy, the image. And I thought that there were 2 methods in which a society brands itself domestically and externally in the second half of the 20th century. A second half where technology, knowledge, sophistication is part of the human condition. So you have to adapt yourself to the technological revolutions, the conceptual revolution and epistemological revolution of humanity if you want to succeed. You cannot use 19th century tactics for that. And I thought that I would look at 2 opposing methods which actually complement each other. If you want to prove that a certain story is not only valid but also justified, namely that you came to an empty country and you had the right to dispossess the people in the empty country, how the people in the empty country became people of the empty country is one of the first questions I asked as a BA student in the Hebrew University, and I was thrown out of the class for asking this question. He said, these are not the kind of questions students should ask. Never mind. If you want to prove that this was valid and was ethically correct, you need, first of all, scientific proof. You need academics. You need academics who would believe that their objective scientific academic research proves the ideological lies and fabrication. And most of the Israeli academics, ever since 48 until today, willingly recruit themselves for this task. Of course, when you are already 2nd or 3rd generation of this recruitment, you begin to believe that what you produce is the scientific truth. You don't think that you are manipulating the truth. But at the very beginning, interested me. And this is where I bring in the book 1930s, called Yoshua Ben-Zion Binu, who would become the second Minister of Education in Israel, and David Ben-Gurion, the leader of the Jewish Zionist movement in Palestine. And that's, the conversation between them is a typical example of the kind of relationship that developed between the Zionist leaders before the creation of the State of Israel and the Zionist historians, but which will continue between the State of Israel and its historians after 1948. The historian was called to David Ben-Gurion to discuss the imminent arrival of the Royal British Commission to Palestine and was about to suggest a solution for the problem of Palestine, the Royal Appeal Commission. And it was about to come in 2 weeks' time. So Ben-Gurion calls this historian and asks him, we need to prove to the British that there was Jewish continuity in Palestine from the end of the Roman era, when Jews were exiled according to this narrative to Rome, until the arrival of the first Zionist immigrants in the late 19th century. So the professor, who was a serious person, he says to Ben-Gurion, that's brilliant, because that's what we want to do in the Hebrew University. Ben-Gurion said, great, and how long will it take you to prove it? So he said, these 10 years, so many periods, so many languages, so much expertise is needed for that. And Ben-Gurion said to him, you don't understand. The Appeal Commission is coming in 2 weeks' time. So you'll prove that Jews were always in Palestine. Then you have 10, 15 years to prove it later on. And this kind of relationship was at the basis of the kind of unwritten contract between Zionist ideologues and Israeli academics. So what I do in the first part of the book, I'm looking at the academic production of knowledge in the service of Zionism. And it includes a lot of disciplines: historiography, sociology, anthropology, geography, and they're all doing their bit, some consciously, some unconsciously. Very few, I don't need more than one hand, doubt the validity of the project. Very interesting. Among the academics who are part of it, the doubters exist, but they come from different disciplines, from chemistry, from engineering, from the civil society, but not historians, not sociologists, not geographers. The people themselves, who should have known better, are part of it. And it's a powerful product that they produce. A scientific proof that Palestine was empty, that Palestinians have no connection to the country, that whatever the Jews did in Palestine was for the benefit of those people who were not there. I mean, one fabrication after the other. If you want a cartographic picture of that fabrication, have a look at the Atlas of the Arab-Israeli conflict that is prepared by one of Britain's leading historians, unfortunately, Sir Martin Gilbert. I think it's in the 10th edition now, published, unfortunately, by Cambridge University Press. You have, this is the Atlas of the Arab-Israeli conflict, kind of a history of Palestine, right? The first map is biblical Palestine. So if you want to know the modern history of Palestine, you have to go to biblical times. It makes a lot of sense. The second map is the Roman occupation of Palestine. Okay. The third map are the Crusaders. And the fourth map is the first Jewish immigration to Palestine in the 19th century. So what happened between the Roman times and the late 19th century? It's a black hole. Nothing. I remember when I got the first edition, I said, I wanted to go back to the shop. I said, you gave me a defunct book. I'm sure there are 10 pages missing of at least 10 maps. I said, no, sir, this is the real edition. 10 editions later, with all we know about Israel and Palestine, this illustrious British professor in the pocket of the Zionists still produces the same atlas. Unbelievable. Anyway, so this is the first part, how academics produce a certain brand. And it was very important not only to focus on the historical narrative, to tell a certain story that totally excludes the Palestinian, wipes them out of history, wipes Palestine out of the Arab world, out of Islamic history, out of the civilization that was typical to the region. But on top of it, and this is why I chose the name the idea of Israel, on top of it is an amazing claim that I quote from one of Israel's leading historians at the beginning of the book, an historian called Yosef Gorman. In this quote he says, and that's a very important quote, because it was the most successful formula people around the world quote about this. Yosef Gorman, who's still alive and is a very, very nice man and a good friend, writes in a very famous article about Zionism. He says the following: humanity progressed in the 18th and 19th century through a set of ideas that transformed it into what it is today. Enlightened ideas such as democracy, liberalism, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom to define yourself. I don't have to give you the whole spiel, but you understand what I'm talking about. So there is a particular period in the West that salvages humanity from the age of darkness and pushes it into the light of progress and enlightenment. Now he says in this quote, most of the ideas associated with the Enlightenment, most of the isms, have failed humanity. They prove to be unsatisfactory or not properly implemented and so on. So most projects that Enlightenment pushed forward, unfortunately, were not fulfilled successfully. Only one ism, only one idea of Enlightenment was successfully, ethically, and morally implemented. And this is Zionism. And this deep belief that the revolution that affected the Jewish people through the emergence of Zionism is part of the ideas of enlightenment and progress, and was embedded in this academic production of knowledge of Israel. And I took the name from him, the idea, because I really think that's what Israel was, that's how Israel was grounded. It's an idea, not ideology, that can be bad and can be good, and not an ideal which would be too utopian, but as a human idea, something brilliant that comes from the best minds in humanity and turns into an amazing reality on the world. And I remember I once asked Yosef Gorman, do you sit in front of Palestinian students in the university whose families were uprooted in 1948, their houses demolished, their fields burned, and you tell them that this is one of the greatest ideas of enlightenment? He says, oh, but they are much better off than they were before we came. And that's what is important. Not how we did it, but what we did. And this is also part of what I'm trying to show you. However, I don't believe you can sell or brand an idea just through academic research. You need exactly the opposite human method of understanding knowledge to complement it. And this is the fiction. When fiction complements scientific research, the story is complete. And the most effective fictional means of convincing people that a certain narrative is valid and another is not are the movies, the cinemas. So I compare how the same narrative in the book, how the same narrative was broadcast by academics and by filmmakers. And I claim that the fusion of both together made it a powerful tool. People forget that in the United States, until 1967, it was not easy to brand Israel as a positive idea. People forget. Until 1967, even the toughest American administration in their relationship with the Arab world were not anti-Palestinians. That's why the Israelis had to create AIPAC during the time of Eisenhower and Kennedy. Johnson was okay. From the beginning of the Johnson administration, America was totally in the hands of the Israelis. That's why Oliver Stone thinks that the Israelis are behind JFK's assassination, which is possible. But I just want to explain where these ideas come from. American, especially the American academic elite perceptions of Israel. And the film, Exodus, based on Leon Uris's book, was a very important means of changing that image. Taking Paul Newman, who looked like an Aryan, and an Aryan Jew, who could do no wrong, as epitomizing the Israeli of 1948. And then you try, I don't know if you've ever seen the film recently, have a look at how the Palestinians appear in the film. It's incredible. It's hazy. You have a hazy picture of Palestine. You know there are many of them. There are many, many, many of them. You cannot see any of them very clearly. And when you see one very clearly, it's a kind of a fusion between Ibn Laden and the alien from the science fiction. It's a terrifying kind of image. And this grotesque presentation of the Palestinians is represented again and again in Israeli films and pro-Israeli films. And I claim that this fusion together was very important. Now, this branding from the inside was challenged by individuals until 1990 inside Israel, and by a very significant group of Israelis between 1990, more or less, and 2000, what I call the post-Zionist moment in Israel's history of production of knowledge, when quite a lot of Israeli academics, filmmakers, writers, poets, journalists, educators, said, wait a minute, we don't buy this branding. And they used, and I was part of them, so I can say, we used the same methods that the establishment used. We did it scientifically, and we did it through movies, especially documentary movies, but not only documentary movies. And we really challenged Zionism from within. I pay tribute in the book to those who preceded us, who were not such a big group. Some of the names may be familiar to you, but I decided to record their bravery more than anything. They had no impact on anyone. I think the impact at us, the generation of challengers of the 1990s, but they were a unique group of people, and they deserve to be mentioned. Most of them are not alive, so I allow myself also to say that in order to survive, they had to be a bit eccentric, and they had no sense of humor, which was very helpful, because they took themselves very seriously, and that's how they survived. Because otherwise, you'd be driven mad as an Israeli Jew in the 60s. You would think that Zionism is wrong. I mean, this is, had it been the Soviet Union, you would have been locked anyway in a lunatic asylum. But in Israel, it was enough that the family treated you as an outcase to drive you mad even further. But I think that they were important. I also tried in the book to and I don't give it, and I must admit, I don't give a sufficient good answer to that, why the impulse to challenge this branding of Israel from the inside, which I call the post-Zionist moment in the 1990s, was so short-lived. Because it almost disappeared the moment it appeared. I mean, Israeli historians who said that Israel expelled Palestinians in 1948, that it mistreated Palestinians in Israel, that Zionism is colonialism, either showing it through film or through academic work, appeared like a comet in the sky and then disappeared. Some of them even disappeared by a kind of ceremony of the mea culpa, saying, we're sorry, we were wrong. The worst quote I have in the book is from a philosopher from Haifa University, all kinds of weird things happen in Haifa University, who said that when he was a critical Zionist, he felt like he belonged to a satanic cult. Thank God he got out of it. Unfortunately, he died a year later, and had nothing to do with it. So I hope it wasn't post-Zionism that killed him, but rather cancer. But that was typical to the mood. You can understand the mood that people were sort of swimming in. And I don't have a good explanation, because none of these Israeli academics or filmmakers were arrested, we were not tortured, nobody threatened us beyond letters of death and so on, but basically it wasn't that bad. And we disappeared. Most of us left. of the book shows Israel after the end of this challenge from within. And you have two interesting developments. One you're familiar with. The whole Israeli society becomes not Zionist, but neo-Zionists. The whole exercise of trying to ask yourself, am I wrong? Are there any moral problems with what I'm doing and who I am? Was replaced by an astounding answer. I'm right, and who cares what the others are saying about me? And you can see it through the patterns of voting in the elections, a series of very racist laws in the Israeli Knesset, a far harsher policy towards the Palestinians inside Israel, and the brutal, lethal policies against the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip and in the West Bank. And this is a kind of an answer to the idea that you can challenge from within. The main victim of the challenge from within was liberal Zionism. Liberal Zionists disappeared from it. So if you know one, keep them. They are really an extinct species. If you know a little liberal Zionist, nourish it, nurture them. They're very important for historical records. But they disappeared. You have two of them, good. They're great. I hope you water them 3 times a day. And a lot of good, healthy food, because we need them to tell the story. How did the square circles so many years? Because it's a machine. Only magicians can square circles. But this went away. I mean, what you have in Israel is a society at a juncture which made a certain decision, which I hope they would change. The decision it had to make is, do you want to be a racist state or a democratic state? Most Israeli Jews prefer a racist state to a democratic state. I hope this is not the final verdict. I really hope that a different decision would come in the near future. So that's one development, which is very important. But the other development is the import of this critical impulse from inside Israel to outside Israel. Suddenly the Western academics became post-Zionist, anti-Zionist, call it what you want. And the research from the outside challenged much more effectively, much more successfully, the branding Israel from within. And maybe it's not surprising, because they were working under more secure conditions. There were many more of them. And they felt less, of course, inhibited by whatever inhibited us as Israeli Jews to attack the basic truisms of our own society. So this impulse continues to this very day. That the result is the Israel Apartheid Week in campuses, the BDS campaign. I mean, it has many manifestations. And I think that in the next 10 years, we will see these manifestations moving, I'm very optimistic, moving from campuses, civil society, into mainstream media and mainstream politics. We've seen it before happening in apartheid South Africa. I think this may happen. It hasn't happened yet, but it will happen. It will happen. And even John Kerry started to insinuate some things about understanding where these things are going. Now, the Israelis government in 2005, for the first time, I think, understood the reality as it was. And this is the decision the Israeli political elite took in 2005, and it remains to be seen, because only 10 years passed since then, 9 years, whether they will be successful or not. The Israeli government decided in 2005 to create something which is called BIG. I don't know if you heard about it. The Brand Israel Group. The Brand Israel Group, which is Benjamin Netanyahu's brainchild, gets millions and millions of Israeli dollars, of American dollars, to recruit the best people in the world who are experts on PR, marketing, branding, in financial terms, to brand Israel. In 2005, they began. The best companies in New York were recruited. The idea was very interesting. The idea was to try and sell Israel as an enlightened, fun, kind of groovy place that anybody who tells you anything else hasn't been there. Something like that. Verso is a very, my publisher, a very conservative. So they didn't allow me, Puritans rather, they didn't allow me to put some posters that the Israelis were distributing. Because one poster was targeting the gay community in America. So we had 5 very handsome young men, barely dressed, selling Israel as the best kind of gay heaven on earth. But they also targeted the heterosexual community with Gal Gadot. Remember her? Fast and Furious 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. She was there. She appears with the Kalashnikov, which is more or less what she's wearing. And says Israel is an ideal place for women. Because you get Kalashnikov for free. And this is the kind of posters. The amazing thing of Big Israel, or Big, the brand Israel Group, is the geographical target. Because you would have thought, if Israel in 2005 is worried about delegitimization of the state, as they say, where would they go? You would think about Norway, Spain, Italy, Ireland, maybe Britain. But most of the money goes to brand Israel in America. And we thought America is in the pockets of Israel. But not only that, most of the money goes to convince the young Jewish community in America that Israel is worth supporting. So they know something we don't know about the young American Jewish community. Or we do know. That they have doubts. That they don't want to be easily associated with bombing in Gaza, killing of volunteers of Mavi Marmara, or whatever Israel is doing on a daily basis. It's quite possible. Definitely the Israelis think that that's where the money should go. In 2010, and we can get into a close with the interview as well. In 2010, the big company had a big conference in Israel 5 years later to evaluate. And they were very disappointed. They said, it failed. It doesn't really work. And the conclusion of the Israeli policymakers, and Netanyahu in their hand, was in 2010, we made one crucial mistake. And that is, we were trying to win the argument. That was a mistake. We cannot win the argument. So more or less, we should target those who argue against us. And I saw, Hassan and I saw an example in your illustrious campus. 2 days ago, we were trying to distribute some innocent poster about this talk. But the Zionist demolition team, a day later, removed all of them. They prefer removing the posters than coming and challenge. Because what kind of arguments can you do in favor of occupation, imprisonment without trial, ethnically cleansing people? Not easy. Not easy to be on that side. Much easier to target the messengers than to challenge the message. So branding Israel is not going very well. In fact, it is very visible. I don't know if you saw the picture from the last APAC convention. They look so impotent, so pale compared to previous years. It looked like some sort of defensive kind of ex-combatants who sort of long the beautiful days of battle, but cannot relive it, really. And I think this undermining process that AIPAC is going through, and the move of Israel to Christian Zionism as its main ally in the United States, is a very, very dangerous development as far as most of us who live in Israel and Palestine are concerned. It means they have really lost it altogether. They've really lost it altogether. If you want Christian Zionists to anyway believe that when the Messiah is coming for the second time, that you will be barbecued or shish kebab in hell, you think these are the people you want to rely on, you're in big trouble. In the time when the whole Middle East is burning, the whole Middle East is burning. And I would end by saying that the first thing Israelis will have to do, and they will do it, I'm optimistic they will do it, is stop wasting money on branding Israel. There's no way you can brand occupation, dispossession, colonialism. There's no way you can't brand it in in 2040. With those people you want to bring it, namely decent, conscientious people. You can't. Start by accepting the fact, which for most Israeli Jews is new, is really news. That Israel, I will say it very quietly when I say it in Israel, so I don't want to be shocked. Israel is in the Middle East. It's really in the middle of the Middle East. Because most Israelis I know think that Israel is between Aberdeen in Scotland and Oslo in Norway. Because we don't have the real maps. Israel is in the Middle East. And everything that's happening in the Middle East will happen to Israel. And I gave two examples in a recent interview I gave in Israel. I don't give many interviews, but in the recent interview I gave in Israel, the interviewer argued with me that everything that's happening in the Arab world has no relevance to Israel, because Israel is part of Europe and it's not. So I gave them two metaphors which I will add this talk tonight. And I think they are very important for understanding that despite all the jokes that I'm putting in, I'm very worried, not just for the sake of the Palestinians, but also for the sake of the Jews in Israel. I really think we are heading into a real bloody catastrophe very soon. One is the metaphor of the Titanic. I said to this Israeli journalist, you know, even if you occupy the best deck in the Titanic, you're still on the Titanic. And they still think that they have the best deck in a sinking ship, but there's nothing to do with a sinking ship. But far more important, I think Israelis should look again and again and again in the images from the roof of the American embassy in South Vietnam in 1975. They should look at it again and again and again if they think that they are invincible, if they think that they can spit on the world's morality, if they can ignore people's human and civil rights. They should go back to these images. They are very powerful, they're very important. And it's very difficult to convey these messages to Israel, but I think if we convey them successfully in America, hopefully we'll convey them successfully also in Israel. Thank you very much. I can do this. Papers, other papers? Okay. You're very organized. I have to wait. Can I also take pictures on the floor? Or no? I don't want to violate what I...
You can do what you want, it's free.
Oh, free country, this one? That's a very interesting thing. Yeah. Okay, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll take one, and then I'll take one from the floor, and we'll finish by 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. Okay, the transfer agreement like that. What is the story about that book? The transfer agreement of that? No idea. Oh, are you the one who wrote it? Who wrote it? Can you say what it means? Yeah, in one sentence.
There was a book entitled The Transfer Agreement.
Okay.
And it was about the agreement between the Zionists and Nazi Germany to
Facilitated Jewish immigration to Palestine. Okay, that's a good question. I actually deal with it in the book. I have a whole chapter in the book, but in which I couldn't give everything in the talk. I thought part of the important branding in Israel was creating this connection that does not exist between what the Nazis did to the Jews and what the Jews did to the Palestinians. And the best way to reconcile it was to Nazify the Palestinians. And therefore to create this connection that actually if you destroy a Palestinian village in 1948, you retaliate for what the Nazis did to a Jewish ghetto in Europe. What is not giving in a branding Israel is what you're talking about. A very uneasy uniformity of interests between not only the Nazis, anti-Semites, wherever they are, in Europe and Zionism. Because both movements want to see the Jews out of Europe. I gave a talk in Prague 2 months ago, I don't remember. And I don't know if you know, but the Czech Republic is the most pro-Israeli state in Europe. And he was in front of the mayor of Prague. He proudly told me that because of what the Jews did.
Attention! UC Berkeley stops systematically discriminating against Jews.
Must be moving. Must be moving. It must be moving.
University is sponsoring this event. UCSJP. UCSJP. UCSJP.
Don't dress like this when you go to Jerusalem. When you go to Jerusalem, crucify you.
Ilan, you're a disgrace to your own people and you know it.
And I'm as proud as you are. I'm hiding my face. I told you, the Israeli response became pathological and ridiculous. And that's a very sad story. Okay, let me go back to this. In Prague, the idea in Prague is that the help that the Czech Republic gave to the Jewish army in 1948 was compensation for the fact that the Czech didn't do anything when the Nazis slaughtered 8,000 Jews.
I want to just make sure they get this in here. You guys are hogs.
That I don't know any other people in the world would have been able to control. And it's not only after the Holocaust. Just recently I read a book by someone called J.J. Jeffries, who was a correspondent for one of the British newspapers in the 1930s. And he wanted to bring to the attention of the British readers the horrors of the British reprisal action against the Palestinians during the revolt in 1936 and 1939. And he said, I'm not able to publish it. Because there's a coalition between pro-Zionists, Islamophobic Brits at the top, among journalists who will not allow it to happen. And that's before the Holocaust, so you can imagine. So what I'm trying to say is that the fragmentation of the the kind of narrative that they had to confront, namely that Palestine is a redemption, the atonement for what the West did to the Jews for 2,000 years. Even the most able people in the world would find it quite difficult to counterbrand. Now, of course, the Palestinians had their own deficiencies. It was a patriarchal society, it was fragmented. The leaders during the mandatory period still lived in the Arab Ottoman period. They found it very difficult to compete with European Jews who were working for the British government and so on. After that, you're right, after that they should have done better in a way, but I still think that the coalitions that stand behind this knowledge, behind this branding, are too powerful. It doesn't justify Palestinians' lack of unity. It doesn't justify the lack of recruitment among Palestinians here for a better PR campaign. It doesn't justify it, it just explains why it works. And let me try and take another question. It's clear that Israel is dysfunctional, considering that the Jews needed some sense of security following the Holocaust. Alternative reality could have come into existence, which respected the human rights of all. I don't like the system. Maybe it's those who wrote it probably can read it better than I do. Who wrote it? I'm sorry about it, I'm destroying the system.
Well, yeah. Sure, yeah. The question is basically, Israel's not working. So, what alternative did they have? Here was a group of people who were,
Oh, I see what you mean.
they were upset at the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Is there an alternative? Do they have to have their own land?
Yeah. Okay, good question. Very good question. But I think that it's very important to understand that branding Israel, creating facts on the ground in Palestine that led to the ethnic cleansing in 1948, all began before the Holocaust. So the people who decided that Palestine belongs to them and does not belong to the Palestinians had nothing to do with the Holocaust. Were very, very few people who survived the Holocaust were fighting the Palestinians in 1948. A lot of Jews who spoke in the name of those who were killed in the Holocaust or survived in the Holocaust were ethnically cleansing the Palestinians. But that doesn't mean I underestimate the importance of the Jewish experience as a whole, including the Holocaust, in explaining Israeli traumas and fears, for sure. But the manipulation, and I have a whole chapter on the manipulation of the Holocaust memory in Israel, the manipulation of this experience and the cynical use of employment of it in order to demonize the Palestinians, in order to justify what the Israelis did, it's almost an abuse of that memory. And definitely doesn't help for the dysfunctional society. What was the alternative? The alternative was in the 1920s and the 1930s that is before the Holocaust, to live together with the Palestinians instead of contemplating their displacement. And secondly, after the Holocaust, I think that alternatives were all over the place. And that most of the Jews in Europe who survived, 90% of the Jews who survived the Holocaust decided to go to Britain and the United States. They believed that building a more liberal place, a more democratic, more free place is a good answer. Now, today, of course, this is all bridge under water. You have a third generation of Jewish settlers, you have a native population, and they will have to find a way of living together. Any native Palestinian who still contemplates the return of the Jews to their home countries is wrong. Any Jew who contemplates the disappearance of the Palestinians is wrong. And they will have to find a way of living together in an equal way, in a democratic way. The idea of the Jewish state does not provide this democracy and equality. The idea of two-state solution does not provide this equality and democracy. So we will have to work very hard, those of us who live there. We work very hard to find a better solution. It won't be easy, but that will be the way. Yes, please.
Yes.
Oh my God. I don't have to read this. Okay.
For me, you want me to ask a question?
Tell me what it is so I can at least eliminate it.
I think the author's name is something like Kulovitz, where the Zionists were allowed want to go to Israel, but they ended up there.
Okay.
So I don't know much about
Yeah,
that.
Yeah. The book was written by someone called Grudziński. I didn't say that. Yeah. Yossi Grudziński, who is a psychoneurologist from the University of Tel Aviv, who took a special interest in it, although he's not a professional historian, because his father was one of these people who did the Tipi Klev are the displaced person camps, to which Jews, after being salvaged from the concentration camp, were put in these camps until the international community decided what to do with them. And it's true that there was a Zionist lobby to prevent these people from coming to the United States as the joint continent to come, or to England. And one of the best ways to prevent them from going to the United States was to recruit them on the spot to the Haganah, so that if they don't go to Palestine, they would be violating a military regulation. And he was the first one to expose it. In Hebrew, it's called Chomer Tov, good human material. It came out in English too. Okay, I'll go through the. You mentioned those who recognize the things. Please raise your hand when you recognize that this is your Magna Carta, and help me to complete it. Okay. You mentioned a lot about the branding of Israel. Maybe no. To young American Jews. And the international community at large. But what has Israel done to quell the voice of the political left within Israel? What does domestic branding of Israel within Israel look like, if it occurs? Very good handwriting. Excellent. Yes, I don't know what you mean by the Israeli left. As I said before, the liberal Zionists, if you mean liberal Zionists in Israel, they really disappeared, as I say, because of what happened in the last 10 years. There is a very interesting a group of young Israeli Jews, whom I think will not be offended if I will call them anti-Zionists inside Israel. Some of them would agree with this definition, some would be less happy with it, whether it's anarchists against the wall, soldiers breaking the silence, and so on. They are, I don't think they're being broken by Israel, or silenced by Israel. Their main problem was the problem that I had. And that particular problem is that you are not being silenced from above in Israel as an Israeli, dissident Israeli Jew. You're being silenced by your own society. They don't have to worry. They don't have to send the Secret Service as they would do to dissident Palestine. They don't need to use the power of the state in order to stifle your voice. They count on the society around you, your peers in the profession, in the family, in the tribe, to make sure that you will feel unwelcome. And I think that's the stronger pressure on people like this, is to remain steadfast in what they believe, and yet still belonging, because everybody wants to belong. You don't want to be ousted. That's why I said the early anti-Zionists, who didn't have any reference to Zionism, must have felt awful. I mean, there was no one there. They didn't feel Palestinian. They were not Palestinians. And they were not part of the Jewish society. It must have been hell to be in such a lonely voice. And that's, I think, why some of them were real nutcases, and it's not surprising. But I think now there's no excuse. I think there's a lot of reference. I can give you an example. I remember there's a very good video that I think shows the two perspectives of young Israelis. The Israeli army produced a film that was trying to fight against the tendency of young Israelis not to serve in the army. And it shows 5 young Israelis in kind of a typical Israeli after-military trip to India. They sit, well, most of them sit in Goa, smoking, not only cigarettes. And next to them sit some lovely, the wet Israeli green, 3 Swedish, I think that's young women. And the women asked with a Swedish accent, what did you do in the army? The first guy say, probably I was in the commando. The other one was one of the elite units, Air Force, Navy SEAL. whatever. And then the camera focuses on a shy Israeli who doesn't find the words to say, and he's not only that his mates look at him disparagingly, you can imagine the look he gets from the Swedish ladies, and that's very awful. So there is a counterfeit. Same place, same Swedish ladies, same smoke material. And they ask, and one Israeli says probably, I didn't serve. The last one very quietly said, there wasn't an elite unit in Israel. Looks at them with respect. So I think we are trying to brand and counter-brand, and it's tough, it's very tough. It must be the same, it's even worse, I think, that compared to white dissidents who did not agree with apartheid. That's why I started my lecture to say, at least some white people in South Africa, in a relatively large number, knew that the image from the outside is the one they agree with. I find very, very few Israelis that agree with this image in its totality. They may agree with parts of it, but not in its totality. And that's why it's so difficult. Let me just go quickly. I'm sure all of you have written things. No? You talked about the shift in the 1990s. How much of this had to do with the first Intifada, disillusionment after the assassination of Rabin, or the failure of the Oslo Accords? What led to this shift in internal vis-a-vis Western criticism? I do, as I said, I'm trying to give an explanation which I think has been sufficient. Why in 2000 the whole impulse to criticize from within died. Why did the second Intifada? I'm an historian, it's too near to I need a better perspective to answer it. It has to do with the fact, I think, that the Intifada spilled over into Israel itself. And Palestinians in Israel also felt for the first time they were part of a larger Palestinian.
Mr. Pappé, did you say that Zionism is
No, you're not
Nazism?
going to dispel me what I think. You want to ask?
Do you think Zionism is Nazism?
This is not the West Bank.
Could you
Said
please,
Zionism
could
is Nazism.
It's simple. Did you say it? You said it a few minutes ago.
You said Zionism
you please
is
leave?
Nazism.
You're disturbing an academic event. You should leave the
You
hall,
said
please.
Zionism is Nazism.
Another explanation may be the fact that things began to change.
Zionism is Nazism.
Have a good evening.
2011, you would have seen maybe a longer period in internal and external criticism. The 9/11 enabled the Israelis to associate Islamic terrorism with Palestinian terrorism and so on. But as I say, I don't have a good answer. Yes, please. And then I'll move up. I won't forget you. Yes, please.
I want to ask you because you spoke about the next threat of Israel. And I think that because I lived in Palestine for 5 years, so I agree with everything you said and I have a lot of examples about that. But the last year that I was in Palestine, I was working with the work in international corporations, so we worked in schools. So I saw that in Jerusalem, they were distributing books for Palestinian school, of course, on geography and history. And some of those schools didn't have the money to buy it. So this is kind of Israel among Palestinians. I think
It's an important part. Yeah, I will repeat. I'm cutting this short because there are many people, okay? There are many people and I want to answer as many as I can. The young gentleman here talks about Palestinians in the West Bank who have to buy Israeli textbooks for the schools because they don't have money to buy new ones, and kind of branding Israel among Palestinians. Not to mention branding Israel to Palestinians inside Israel, who since 1948, their textbooks are being prepared by Israeli educators. And they learn more about Jewish national poets, Bialik, than they learn about their own national poets. I think, however, I'm less worried about this. I mean, I am worried about collaboration among the Palestinians in the occupied territories, born out of the harsh conditions that people live in. That people help to build the settlements, and help to build the wall, and so on. It's an open wound that if you take the Palestinian society ages to recover. But that's another issue. I don't think you can take even a Palestinian who's 5 years old and sell him something about Israel that he doesn't know.
Yeah, but there was targeting the Jerusalem school.
Yeah, but even the Jerusalem school. I remember the argument when it was from the other side. When I was on a panel and one of Netanyahu's henchmen said to me, but you know, Israel does not exist in the Palestinian textbook. So I looked at him and I said, you really think that the Palestinian kid in Jenin doesn't know that Israel exists? Really, tell me. You think that the tank that is in the schoolyard, that the tank who is in the schoolyard, he comes from Sweden? I don't know what I have today for Sweden. I apologize. It sounds like I have a bias. Okay, I'll take one there and I'll go up there. Do young Israelis, the writing becomes better and better. Do young Jewish Israelis have a different opinion on these issues than the older ones? I wish. I think it's a much more complex issue. Most Israeli Jews have the same views as the early Zionists had about Palestinians. The early Zionists came in 1882 or in 1905. They came to a land that they thought would be empty. They saw the Arabs and said, what are these people are doing here? They took over, they invaded our home, and then they immediately divided into two. Those who said if they invaded our home, we have to kick them out, and those who said, no, we should tolerate them, despite the fact that they invaded our home. Not much has changed. I know it's not fair to give such a crash course in Zionist history, but I think that's more or less. However, there is a different young Israeli movement of discipline that I think is a beacon of hope, to my mind. Because people from my generation, we carry with us a lot of anger. I come from a family in which my parents lied to me. And that's not an easy thing to grow up like this, and then to tell your parents, how did you dare to lie to me? Forget about the others. Me, I'm your son. Why did you tell me all these fabrications and so on? And the anger does not enable a good political activist. I think the third generation of Israelis who are young and conscious and understand feel very attached to the country. They're really part of the country. They're also convincing as being part of the country. I'm not convinced of being part of the country. My parents came from Germany. I'm just the first generation. I think my children don't have any other place to go. And it's far more powerful if you have nowhere to go to and you want a democracy where you live. I find it very inspiring. I think my son would have melted even these idiotic people who try to disrupt us by not winning the argument, but killing the argument. Really, I mean, they have a certain confidence of where they belong to that does not negate their wish to live in a democratic equal state that I think none of my generation had. We couldn't have had it. We're too busy, accusing everyone of what they did to us. Rightly so, by the way. So I think there is a good hope there. But I don't want to be over-optimistic. The vast number of young Israelis are happy with being recruited to the army, of doing what they need to do as a policing force in the occupied territories, and living in a racist society. I don't think they have any problem. Okay? This is it. Yeah, upstairs. You were very patient. Thank you.
And you've been patient too. Thank you for coming and enduring what I imagine you're used to.
Yeah.
But what is regrettable intolerance, even if you don't agree with what was said.
That's okay.
My question goes to optimism in your view of the future. You made a very strong case for branding in the service of a particular project. And at the end of your talk, you said, in 2014, this can no longer work.
Right.
Can you shed a little light on why, if it's been so successful before, it will not continue to be successful?
Yeah.
And what changed to create that?
Yeah, I'll tell you. I think that it can be successful as long as there are no alternative ways for producing knowledge. My book is about how knowledge is produced and how academia and cinema and so on are partners to this kind of knowledge production. And they have kind of a monopoly of the knowledge. Now you could say, yes, but there were Palestinians who said, no, this is not true, there's another story. But you know, when Walid Khalidi, the most important Palestinian historian alive today, came in 1950 to Oxford and said, I want to do a PhD on what happened in Palestine, his supervisor said to him, you know, you're a Palestinian and Oriental imagination and so on. Better focus on the medieval times. It's much more secure. So they were disabled, disempowered for putting across their narrative. But can you control the alternative media today? It's very difficult. People know much more than they did beforehand. I mean, the one thing that defeats a fabricated narrative or a branding is knowledge. Ignorance keeps this branding alive. That's why I have a long battle with activists in the UK, young activists, who, like all students, don't like to study too hard, which I can understand. But I tell them, as activists, you don't have this luxury. I'm sorry. If you want to continue to be a normal student, who doesn't read much, who doesn't study much, that's okay. But if you want to be an activist, unfortunately, you have to read. You have to know. It doesn't work. And really, this is a very powerful combination that the Israelis do not know how to cope with. I don't know if you've been to Tel Aviv Ben Gurion Airport. If you notice, unless you fly an Al, because then they will do it in San Francisco or Los Angeles. But if you fly any non-Israeli airline and you come to Tel Aviv Ben Gurion Airport, you will see 5 young people, usually 3 women and 2 men, standing at the, when you go out of the airplane and sort of watching you, profiling you, to decide whether you should be questioned or not. You would think that they are looking for Ibn Laden, you know, someone who looks like just came out of the Afghani caves and, you know, hiding all kinds of bombs in his pockets. They are targeting young Westerners who look like they might go to the West Bank to see with their own eyes what's going on there. And they will be stopped and sent back home. And the only reason is that the Israelis don't want them to report what they're going to see. So I think that's why branding Israel is not working, because you cannot manipulate knowledge as easy as you could before. And thank God, and we should say it in Berkeley, the hegemony of knowledge production that used to be in the hands of the academia has been, thank God, eroded. We don't need just academics to tell us what's going on in the world. Most of it we can do with our own eyes and ears. And that's very okay, I'm sorry. So I'll take one from here and one from there, and I'll be very blind. I won't even see what, so nobody would, I'm really sorry. I promise to come back, only if you promise at the same charade again. I really enjoyed the story spiel of young American styles. How do you see parallels between the colonial branding of Israel, of the United States through academia and media? Excellent questions, and I'll take all the others, I promise, I'll try. I think that it's a very important issue, the branding of the United States. The way Americans explain to themselves what they did to Native Americans, what they did to African Americans. I think it helped a lot, the branding, and I'm sorry I don't have it in my book. I think that should have been in the book. I think it helped to brand Israel in the United States. I have no doubt about it. I mean, I know that there are more direct factors enabling Israel to have the superior position it has in the United States. AIPAC, Christian Zionist, industrial military complex, they are all very important factors, but I do think that affinity between two separate colonialist societies is very important. However, with all the bad things that one can say about the United States, at least on an ethical level, or at least on a normative level, there was a sense that certain things are not correct anymore. Certain things should not be done. It doesn't mean that life of African Americans or Native Americans changed dramatically because of that. It doesn't mean that racism cannot be still rampant in certain parts of the United States. But there is a conversation that cannot take place in Israel. I think the most enlightened thing I ever heard about Israel, and I never thought about it before, I heard from the new ambassador Brazilian ambassador to Ramallah, whom I met. You know, he's never been there, and I think sometimes you get an epiphany from people who've never been there. The first thing he said to me is that how can you explain that Israel is the only country in the West where there are no Muslims or Arabs in immigration encounters? They're not allowed to be in immigration. And then I told him they're not allowed to sell in a phone company, they're not allowed to sell in an electricity company. He didn't believe me, I had to check it. In an electricity company, I said, you think that's the worst? I think it is the worst. If you don't trust the people who've been there for hundreds of years to be at the encounter with the people who want to visit or to immigrate, then you've really turned them into dust. And he's a right winger from Brazil, I don't like that. But he was very honest. And his second observation, after a month in Tel Aviv, he said something that I heard from someone else, and he didn't know that. He said Tel Aviv is the only city in the West that doesn't have any Arabs and Muslims in it. And if you think about, I don't remember why I told you these two things. Oh, yeah. There are certain things that I wish would be in Israel that are happening in the United States with all its troubled history, with all its troubled problems. Because after all, whatever happens here, you do have a state that at least normatively is for all its citizens. Israel normatively is only for Jewish citizens. And the final question, I'm sorry that yeah. Okay, so there's something I'm talking about. Yeah. Yeah.
One of the aspects that I see is left out of the exposure of Israel is the so-called weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah.
I mean, Israel has a bad-kept secret that it has a nuclear arsenal. And part of the United States foreign policy always accuses other countries, North Korea, Iraq, etc., of weapons of mass destruction. The smoking gun.
Yeah.
How come this? I wish that this issue would be raised strongly, exposed.
Yeah, but to be fair, there are certain countries with mass destructive weapons that are allowed to develop them and hold them. And it's not only Israel. Pakistan is another one because it's in the American sphere of influence. The United States is another one. So I think in that respect, Israelis, in many other respects, Israel can be in a club of its own. When it comes to the discrimination between countries who are allowed to have weapons of mass destruction and who are not allowed, and the kind of punishment that would be meted on them for having this mass destruction, is in this respect, Israel is not unique. But I think more important, far more important, is to understand why Israel has nuclear weapons. And with this, I will end. Unfortunately, I really would like to answer all your questions, so this will be the last sentence. Sorry about that. The Israelis will never use their nuclear bombs against the Arab world and whatever. It's all too near, I know. Too near. We had one historical proof why the Israelis need nuclear weapons. In the 1973 war, the Israeli Minister of Defense collapsed, Moshe Dayan, Euro 67. He collapsed. He thought the Jewish state is over. And he was very nervous that the Americans were slow in coming in with military support, diplomatic support, and so on. And he threatened the United States that Israel would use nuclear weapons unless America would immediately come to Israel. That's why they have these nuclear weapons. If you watch the last chapter in the conversation about nuclear weapons in Israel this year, in Israel, the domestic conversation, it's very, very interesting. It's connected to what the Israelis call the delegitimization. Namely, a realization that the moral support of Israel is dwindling, and that the material support to Israel depends on very cynical calculations. And that's not a very secure future. And that's why you need to keep the nuclear weapons and be also branded as a crazy country. So it's not just squaring the circle, I don't have the metaphor. So it's a democracy which can be racist, but it's also an upcase. I don't think it will work. I really don't think it's working. Just to leave you an optimistic note, I really think that everything else that's happening in the Middle East, Israelis and Palestinians together, not under the stupid idea of a two-state solution, but together they can build an amazing, amazing society. And the Middle East hasn't seen, like, really, they can. The Israelis have to get over their impulse, the racist impulse, and allow Palestinians normal life together with them. And Palestinians who are already there, I think most of them, would have to fulfill their impulse for normal life. Unfortunately, 60, 70 years of manipulating fears, nurturing racist ideologies with the support of the world as if you are a people of enlightenment, is a very hard act to unleash. But I'm sure we will be able. Thank you.